I think that a healthy body fat percentage for women, I don't even necessarily want to say just in our age group, I think for everyone, is under 27, 28, definitely under 30%. The more fat that you have, the more subject you are to disease, to cancer, to really everything. I mean, to put it frankly, the fatter you are, the closer you are to death. And so if we can keep that number down, like I think that, you know, you don't have to be in the teens to be healthy, body fat percentage wise. And that number looks different on everyone, right? Like 21% on me looks totally different than it looks like someone on who's 5'7", right? I'm only 5'2". Yeah, and then also where you hold your fat is important too, because if you're someone who unfortunately holds their fat in their stomach area or their midsection, then that is all fat that's sitting closer to your organs. So you may be 22% fat, but it's all in your midsection, and that's not good either.
Hey, welcome back to That's What He Said. I'm your host, Natalie, and this is a podcast about dating. Before you watch, make sure you subscribe, follow, like, comment, rate, review, and share the show. Let's find out what he said.
So, Molly Miller, soon to be
Molly Aguilar.
Welcome to That's What He Said.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Molly is a personal trainer, gorgeous hair girl. That's what I always think of you as. How is that your real hair? So introduce yourself. Tell us about you, your fitness journey, your relationship status, all that good stuff.
For sure. So I am Molly Miller, soon to be Molly Aguilar. I am engaged to the man of my dreams.
Congrats, by the way.
Thank you. We're getting married April 4th, so we're like 9 weeks away, which is wild.
That's crazy.
Yes, I'm a certified personal trainer and nutrition coach. I train mostly in person, but I also take online clients as well. I have been in the fitness industry for 8 years total.
Oh, wow.
I took a little bit of a hiatus after a very toxic gym environment situation. But I got certified as a trainer a year after I graduated high school. So I knew from a pretty early age that this is what I wanted to do. I took that little hiatus for about 3.5-ish years, maybe 4 years. And then I hated my desk job so much, with such a burning passion, that I was like, I have to get out somehow. And at the beginning of 2019, I signed up at a gym here in Houston, and the guy, I didn't think I ever wanted to go back to personal training after my last experience. I was at that gym for like a year and a half.
Okay. So you did training and then desk job and then back to training.
Yes, exactly. And there was some makeup artistry in there as well.
Okay.
Yeah. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. But so then the sales guy at that gym asked me if I was a competitor. And I was like, no, I'm not a competitor, but I used to be a trainer. And he was like, oh, we're actually looking for women trainers right now if you're interested. And I immediately was like, no, I'm good. I don't want to be back in this. Well, I went home, and it just wouldn't leave my mind. I was like, I hate my job so much. I hated it. Just the desk job is not for me. I can't do it.
Same.
I got to be on my feet talking to people. And so anyways, long story short, I started taking clients before my desk job and then after. And by April of that year, so within 3 months, I was able to quit my desk job, and I've never gone back.
Yeah.
So I've been doing this full time ever since, running my own business. And that gym just kind of helped me reignite my love for fitness. And I was like, oh, it was just that bad experience, but I actually love helping people.
That's awesome. And you were a competitor,
Not yet.
Oh, not yet.
Not yet at that time.
So when did you start competing?
I started competing, and I did my first show in 2020. That gym.
And for anyone who doesn't know, can you specify competing? I don't want to like
Yes,
say it wrong.
Of course. So I was competing in NPC bodybuilding. So specifically bodybuilding, and I did my first show in the wellness division, which is in muscularity, I guess you could say, is a step above bikini, which is what a lot of women go into. And then I learned very quickly that I had too much muscle on my upper body, and so I moved up to the figure division. And I did that for the next 3 years. Okay. So that was in addition to, obviously, personal training and all of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we're going to come back to that. I'm going to tie that into like our topic about body image and stuff too.
Yeah,
Because
sure.
just from what I've heard about the world of bodybuilding, it can be like
rough.
a lot on your mind.
Yeah.
So, and you're currently engaged. I want to know how y'all met. How did that happen?
So we met at the gym, shocker.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, wait. Yeah. Tell me exactly how, because I'm a big advocate of talking to people at the gym, like approaching someone, whether male or female.
Yes.
But everyone is like very anti that.
Yeah, no, you should not be. You should definitely be open to talking to people at the gym, because you're all there for essentially the same reason. And so there's common ground immediately that you can talk about. So this is the story. So I was training clients at my gym, and I saw this guy show up who I had never seen before. He actually showed up with another girl. Okay. And I was like, who is this guy? Like, I've never seen him before. And I'm obviously a trainer there, so like I know pretty much everyone's face. And so noticed him right away, but like him and this girl I was like, I couldn't figure out if they were a thing, if they were together, if they were just friends. Like they seemed like they were just friends. Well, every time he would show up, he was showing up with her. So I was like, oh, they're probably together, whatever.
Yeah.
Well, and he would show up very rarely. Like, he had a membership, but he wasn't a regular. And so I was like, what's the deal with this guy? Like, I only saw him every once in a while. And so anyway, so then about a month goes by, maybe a month and a half, and all of a sudden they stop showing up together. He starts showing up by himself. And I was like, and then I would see her by herself. And so I started kind of putting two and two together, and I was like, I don't think they're together anymore. Or they had a falling out or something.
Now it's my chance.
Yeah. And so, and like, I know nothing about this guy. Okay. I just know that I like to look at him. And we've had like maybe one interaction where it's like, hey, are you done using this machine? And that was it. So this is summer of 2023. Okay. About maybe a month or two goes by. End of September, he follows me on Instagram. And I am very big about, I don't follow dudes on Instagram unless I have personally talked to you in person. Okay. Like, that's just my own rule. I don't, like, if a guy randomly follows me on Instagram that I've seen in the gym, literally never am I just following him back if I've never actually met him.
Okay.
Because I just think that the whole social media thing, and it's like, you've seen me in person, but you want to do that. Like, you want to follow me instead of just coming, instead of talking to me.
Yes, now I see what you're saying.
I don't like that. I don't like that. No, like, have the balls to say
something.
the balls to come up and like introduce yourself before you follow me on Instagram. Yes. Whatever. And then start like hopping in my DMs.
Yeah.
That went out the window with him. I was like, oh my God, he followed me. And I immediately followed him back. It wasn't even a second thought in my head. And after I followed him back, I was like, oh my gosh, I just broke my own rule. And so, whatever. But part of the reason why I did it was because he was so randomly at the gym. It's not like I even had a lot of opportunities to even talk to this guy.
Yeah.
And so, whatever. So then, like, obviously I stalk his page, and I learned that he's like in the military, super attracted to that. And I learned that he like mainly does CrossFit. And so that's why my gym was not his normal gym. He typically goes to a CrossFit gym.
Okay.
And like, he likes to do kind of a cross between CrossFit and bodybuilding. And so whenever he was hitting like his bodybuilding days, he would come to
I like
my
that
gym.
balance.
Yeah.
Because too much CrossFit's a red flag, I feel.
Girl. Yeah.
Sorry.
So,
to
I know, I
any
agree.
CrossFitters.
I agree.
I'm like, don't you value your knees and your shoulders at all?
Yeah. So, but he's been doing CrossFit since like he was a teenager. And so he loves it so much and he's very good at it. But anyway, so for about another like month or so, we just kind of like casually have conversation over DMs. Nothing flirty. Like that's the thing. He wasn't trying to hit me up. He wasn't trying to flirt with me. He wasn't like saying I look pretty, anything like that. It was just casual conversation.
Okay. Very respectful.
Very respectful. But then he would like start liking my stories. And then when I went to Europe in November, like the week before Thanksgiving, 2023. And he was like responding to a lot of my stories. And then the day that I got back was a Sunday. And I literally had like a full meltdown with my sisters. And I was like, we're going to start praying for my husband right now. Like I was just tired of being single. Okay. Because I had been single for a while at this point. And
I love that.
I just, like I was like, no, we're going to be very intentional about praying that God would bring me my husband. And Monday night I posted like a gym selfie about my leg day and he responded and he was like, someone say leg day? You want to hit a leg day together? Like ask me out.
Yeah.
And then immediately asked for my number, like wasn't weird about it. And we scheduled a leg day for that coming Saturday. And he got my number. He texted me all week getting to know me. Like,
aww, I love that.
Texted me in the morning all day until we went to bed. And then finally on Thanksgiving Day, he was like, let's go out on an actual date Friday night. And we went out to sushi and literally like ever since then it's just I was like, yeah, that's my husband.
Oh my gosh. That is crazy. So like what, obviously you have like fitness in common, which is super important, but what was like the thing that made you like, this is the guy?
So I don't think that there was one thing. I think that there was so many green flags and no red flags. Like I had gotten out of a very, very toxic relationship about 9 months prior to this. And so I was on high alert for red flags, for like I knew exactly what I did not want. I knew exactly what wasn't going to be healthy. I knew the things that I ignored the last time that was the reason our relationship was so bad. And so he just kept checking boxes. Like, and it wasn't like it wasn't manipulative. It was completely genuine.
Yeah.
So like just some examples, like he wouldn't hide his phone from me, right? It wasn't like oh, here, let me show you this thing on Instagram. And then like, you know,
or like turning to text
someone. Or turning to text someone. It was always like, and then there was a time really early on in our talking stage where he was like, hey, will you check my messages really quick and see if someone messaged me? Here's my passcode. He was like across the room and he couldn't get to it. Was
the phone thing always like a thing in your past?
Yes.
Like a red flag?
Always.
Okay.
Always.
That makes sense.
And so like that was one of the things. We both have really big families. We're both I'm one of 8 kids. He's one of 10.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
He loves...
That's crazy to have that in common.
I know,
because that's very rare.
It is rare. And a lot of people would be like, do you think that y'all can handle each other? Like a lot of times opposites attract. And I'm like, well, he's the oldest and I'm the youngest. So it's totally different. Like the way that we interact with our families is very different.
Yeah.
And so that was a big thing. Like we just had a lot in common. So like obviously finding common ground is like being able to just be friends. Like we both love the same music and stuff like that. But for me, it was just like, wow, he's really like, he was already going to church on his own before we met. Green flag. You know, the phone thing, green flag. He he was just like allowed me to be 100% myself. Green flag. He wouldn't ever try to dampen anything about my personality. And that is something that I have experienced in the past where it's like that person doesn't want me to be my full self.
Yeah.
There were like certain things that they wanted to like,
I think I picked this up sometime on your social media, but aren't you a Sagittarius?
Yeah.
Okay, so am I.
Okay.
And that's like a huge thing with a Sagittarius is like your freedom to like be yourself and like your independence. And like when people try to control you or like stifle that, it's like you're going to lose your mind.
Oh my gosh. And yeah, I did lose my mind.
Yeah.
100%. So yeah, that was one of the things that he was just like, he let me be 100% myself.
That's awesome.
He was intentional about getting to know my family and my parents. Green flag. My brothers especially. Like, so there was just, I don't think that there was any one thing. It was just like, he just continued to prove himself to be someone of good character and someone of integrity. And he was just a stand-up guy. Yeah. And then on top of it, he was sexy, and also we had so much in common. Like we had fun together all the time.
Like best friends.
Genuine best friends. Like from the jump.
Wow. That's awesome. Okay.
So, very different from past relationships.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. There's so much that we could talk about in there, but I'm going to try to stay on our topic. But that's very encouraging to hear.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because I feel like I hear that same story so often of like, start like giving it to God in one way or the other, whether it's like I just had Shelby Nunn here recently, and she was saying it wasn't until after she like prayed about it, just surrendering it, being like, if you want me to be single forever, fine. And then like a week later met this guy that she's, now with. So
100%.
Yeah, that's an awesome testimony. Okay. So I want to start as far as our topic with women's health and wellness, with body image. Okay. Because I want people to know that, because people hear me say a lot of stuff about like, well, if you don't like the way you look, then go to the gym. Like I can be really harsh like that because that's true. But I also know that there's sometimes deeper underlying things that keep people from wanting to work out or feeling capable, or like it can even be discouraging if you're like really struggling with body image and stuff like that. Yeah. So I want to address that first. And so back on the note of competing, what has your journey been like as a woman, as a competitor in the fitness world with body image, and how have you like navigated that? Yeah.
So I think that I was very fortunate in that my body image journey in correlation to bodybuilding has been very positive, which is not the case for a lot of women. And I think that the reason for that is, I'm sure there's a lot of reasons, but what I've typically seen is that you need to have a good reason why you start. And a lot of times women who start bodybuilding, they're doing it for validation, or they're doing it to mask an eating disorder or something like that. And so, or they're doing it because they just want to look like that. Right. And that wasn't my reason for doing it. My reason for doing it originally was because I wanted to build my business, in the fitness industry. I wanted to kind of make a name for myself. Yeah. And also challenge myself to do something hard. And so now I think that I definitely struggled with body image much more as a teen and early 20s. But with bodybuilding, it's interesting because I think that it actually helped my body image more than anything, because your body goes through so many different phases as a bodybuilder. I mean, it's literally crazy. To like an extreme in both directions. Yeah. Right.
No, I remember literally, like, I would see you at the gym, and then 2 weeks later be like, whoa.
Yeah, like don't even recognize
What
me.
happened?
Is
Yeah,
that
it's-
Molly?
yeah, it's crazy,
That's
just
a
like-
skeleton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or it's like, or the other way. You're like,
the other
oh,
way.
she's been eating again.
she been eating. Yeah, I know. So like it would be on one extreme where I'm about to step on stage and I have to get right with the fact that I did not feel sexy because I had no body fat on me and I was just literal bones and muscle. And so like didn't have a butt, didn't have boobs, didn't have any kind of curves. It was like I felt like a 12-year-old boy. Right? And then on the other end of the spectrum, in like peak off season, where I'm pushing 2,500, 3,000 calories a day, and just can't fit into certain jackets. Like I'm just huge. It was all for a purpose, right? Like I had to keep the mindset that every season that I was going through with my body in bodybuilding, it was all for a purpose.
Yeah.
And so comparing myself to other competitors was a pretty normal thing. But I guess just the comparison game was just something that they were just thoughts that I would just kind of let go because I'm like, I have a reason that I'm eating this much right now. I have a reason that I look this way and I'm doing it on purpose. Like, it's not like I accidentally looked like this.
Sure.
You know? And I think that, yeah, so now post bodybuilding, the first year after I stepped off stage for the last time was hard because a lot of things that I didn't deal with pre-bodybuilding, like alcohol, for instance, started to show back up post-bodybuilding. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that I was using bodybuilding as a mask for this.
Gotcha.
And it wasn't necessarily that I was like, you know, an alcoholic or anything like that, but there were just certain things like that I was just trying to navigate, that I was like
your relationship to it.
My relationship to a lot of things. My relationship to food was like, okay, how do I do this again where I'm not on a meal plan?
Yeah.
Because for the last 4 years, I've been on a meal plan every single day. And then also, like, what do I want my body to look like? Because now that I'm not training for the purpose of the stage, I don't have to do 4 upper body days a week. Like,
Yeah.
I can just do 1.
Sounds boring.
Yeah, right? Like it was a lot. So I might be the wrong person to ask just because my experience with it was, in the midst of it, I think was actually helpful because I was like, it allowed me to realize that every season that our bodies go through, and especially as women, we need to learn this. It's all for a purpose. You know, we're not always going to be 120 pounds. We're going to be pregnant one day. We're going to be postpartum one day. We're going to be, you know, going through menopause. And so allowing your mind to get to a point where it's like those thoughts of, I wish my body looked like this and not this, are just thoughts that come and go, that are literally just thoughts that you experience instead of allowing them to derail your whole day.
Yeah.
That was a super valuable lesson for me in bodybuilding.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I think the value there is like your ability to like have the right mindset, like stay in the right mindset.
Yeah.
And that, I think that's a discipline, whether you're in bodybuilding or not, like just a regular person. Because I think that like game of comparison or always feeling like our body isn't good enough, like whatever you have, you always want something different. Like I definitely, and I'm sure your past like plays a role into it as well, but like I was always like the skinny kid and like, you know, teased about that. So from a young age, I started to think, well, like something's wrong with me. Like I need to be bigger. I need to be as strong as, you know, this girl on the volleyball team, or I need to be curvy like that girl. And it's just, and then they think the same thing about skinny people. Like, you know, I need to look like Victoria's Secret model or like freaking America's Next Top Model back then. That was like so abusive. But
Truly.
yes. And then like that, the fact that Tyra Banks was like a plus size model. That show was so messed up.
Oh
I see
my
like
gosh,
reels
yeah.
and TikToks
It's
of it
wild.
now, and I'm like, gosh, I didn't even realize. But like it's, I think, almost natural given the culture that we live in to get in a mindset of like, it's what you have is never going to be good enough.
Yeah.
And always comparing. I know for me, like, I've always had a subconscious mindset with fitness. Like, it's number one because I enjoy it and because it's very important for me to be healthy. But it's like, I would hate myself if I just let my body like looks the way that it does.
Yeah.
Like, it's always like a subconscious, like, keep some weight on, or like make sure I'm at least a size 2, like,
Right.
you know, that like unhealthy thought pattern too.
Which is the story of most women.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So what would you say, like, how, if you're not obviously bodybuilder, just to like the regular women, how do we avoid being in that mindset just on a day-to-day, especially with fitness? Because I think that holds people back. People who are not comfortable in a gym, no matter what type of gym it is, they don't want to go and see all of the girls and guys in great shape, and they feel like they're not.
Yeah.
You know, I hear that a lot. They're like, not only do I not know what to do, but I feel like everyone's staring at me because I'm not in shape.
Yeah, they feel like they have to get in shape before they even go to the gym.
Yes, exactly.
Which is wild.
Yes.
It's like a similar thing when, you know, people think that they have to get right before they go to church.
Yes.
It's like, no, that's literally what it's for.
Right.
It's like, you can go a mess and it's fine.
Yeah. How, I guess, on the topic of mindset, like, what's your advice to women for overcoming that?
Yeah, so, you know, you mentioned the word avoid, and I think that that's the very thing that we shouldn't do is avoid those thoughts, because we can't. Like, on this side of heaven, we cannot. I have those thoughts every single day of comparing myself to someone else in the gym. Someone else, like every girl, it is, you can't believe that there is a girl out there or a woman that doesn't have a thought of comparing herself to somebody else. We all do, every single day.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it's how do I avoid that? I think it's how do I navigate it in the actual moment. That is important, because like I said, I see girls in the gym all the time that I'm like, dang, she looks good. Like, I'm a trainer and she looks better than me. But it's a matter of allowing the thought to just be a thought than letting it derail your entire day.
Yeah.
And it's a practice. Like, it's not something that you're going to get good at overnight. It's funny. I was actually just talking to my client about this last night.
Really?
Yeah, she's actually 23. She's single and, you know, just struggles with a lot of body image stuff. And so we talk about like dating and body image all the time, the time. And I think that there's this unhealthy, especially when it comes to social media.
Yeah.
There's this very unhealthy mindset that women have, that we always have to be better than the next person, that we always have to be prettier or whatever, more in shape.
Oh, like always competing.
Always competing.
Yeah. And
I think that we all need to be just knocked down a couple notches, because I'm like, that's an insane way to live. That is a very chaotic way to think every single day, that there's not going to be someone prettier than you. There is always going to be someone prettier than me. Always. There's always going to be someone more fit than me. And then in the opposite direction, the same thing is true. And so I think it has more to do with learning how to navigate these thoughts and practicing changing the narrative.
Yeah. What's like an example of that?
A good example would be, okay, you see a girl walk in the gym, and whatever it is about her that you like more than yourself, right? Oh, she's got bigger glutes than me. She's got bigger quads. She's more fit. She's got that perfect feminine to muscular
or
ratio.
even nowadays, like with outfits.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Right. Like I
she's
look
got
like
the
I just rolled out
newest
of
and
bed.
cutest, and she's got makeup, like she got ready to
Yes.
come to the gym, and I'm like,
Yeah.
well, I look like a piece of
I literally look like a potato that I put on a trash bag to come to the gym. Yes. I think that, you see someone like that, right? You say the comparison, and instead you acknowledge the fact that you just did that, and you completely change the narrative, and you change the wording altogether, and you say, that girl looks awesome.
Yeah.
That girl is beautiful. Period. That doesn't take away from who you are.
Right.
It just means that that girl has a fire outfit on today.
Yeah.
And you could even take it a step further than that and further the practice and go up to that person and compliment them.
I was just
now
about
you have
to
a new
say
friend.
that. Yeah, I was just about to say that.
Yeah,
I
now-
feel like that's definitely something I probably started doing. I don't even know that it was a conscious thing, but I think I got out of my own way of like just always being jealous because
Right.
of my own insecurities.
Totally.
Probably when I was like maybe early 20s. And yeah, I found that complimenting other girls genuinely, not like to be weird or like snaky, genuinely like made me feel better.
Totally.
Like it calmed my
Yes.
anxiety of those
Because
thoughts.
it took something that was selfish and turned it selfless. And
good.
that is when it's a constant me, when it's constantly about what I look like, what I'm wearing, oh, they're probably judging me because they look bad. No, it takes it from being selfish to selfless. And you completely take the focus off of yourself and you put it on the other person. That is a part of the practice, and it helps change the narrative.
Yeah. That's a huge thing too, like in gym spaces, is like girls being nice to each other. Like for that exact, we're all walking around thinking the same thing.
Exactly.
Everyone's, sizing each other up. I don't know if guys do that too, but
Oh, guys definitely do that.
and so then it's like, depending on where you go, what gym you go to, some are really nice, but I've been to ones where it's like just a weird energy because everyone's kind of looking at each other, but no one's like being friendly. And
Yes.
it's like, everyone's here doing the same thing. We're all sitting here thinking the same thing about each other. Like, why not open your mouth and talk and like be friends?
Yeah, it's silly. It's so silly. It just makes me think like, to your point of what you said about, oh, that person, like the gym outfits thing, right? Just like I am thinking about that about someone else, when I come in, hair in a messy bun, sweat, whatever, like didn't put much thought into my outfit, probably don't have any makeup on, there is going to be some girl in the gym that sees me and is like, man, she is rocking that grungy look today, right? When I feel like I look like a trash panda. Like, I just rolled out of bed.
That's funny.
So there's always going to be someone that's thinking good thoughts about you.
Right.
When you're sitting there judging yourself.
Yeah. Or even, like, I've even thought, like, that someone who, like, doesn't try looks cool.
Exactly. Totally. Right.
She doesn't care what she looks like working out.
Yeah, that
like,
girl's cool.
She's sweating, like,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's so stupid when you really think of it that way. Because it's basically being in a space of either being positive and selfless or being negative and selfish. And whatever space you're in, you're going to create thoughts that satisfy that.
Yeah. And truly, like, when you boil it down, it's really just an ego trip. Like, it's all just, like, why do you think that someone else is thinking about you like that? No, literally no one cares.
Yeah. Yeah.
Quite literally, no one is seeing you walk in the gym and judging you for the way that you just re-racked that weight or like accidentally.
Right.
Or like no one is thinking about you like that because they're all thinking about themselves. And so you asked about, what would I say to people who are scared to come in the gym, women who are scared to come in the gym. Everyone is focused on themselves, and there has never, at least for me personally, there has never been a time where I've seen someone new in the gym and I have thought to myself, what are they doing here?
Right.
My first thought is, hell yeah, they're here, they're trying.
Yeah.
And if there is anyone who is actually genuinely judging you for being there because you're overweight or you're just started on your journey, you don't really know what you're doing, then that person has serious issues.
Yeah.
And that's not someone that you want to care what they think anyway.
Right. So
you
that
know?
says something about them.
Right.
You know.
But majority of the people who are in the gym, especially the ones that have been there for a long time, who are gym people, the people with, you know, the most muscle and the fittest, like when we see beginners, especially if I see someone who's like really overweight and they're in the gym, I feel inspired by that. I'm like, they don't even realize that they're motivating the fittest people in the gym.
Right.
Right. So yeah, I mean, it's just no one's judging you. And I just wish that more people would realize that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really good point. I feel like the only time where it's like from what I've heard of like friends going to gyms and stuff, I just always say like, just have good gym manners.
Yeah.
And no one's like gonna bother you or like
Totally.
stare at you or care about what you're doing. But like, I feel like that's the only time that I've judged somebody is I'm like, are you seriously doing that? Like you left 100 pounds on that thing?
Yeah, that'll piss me off. That'll piss me off real fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, good manners, good gym manners. Re-rack your weights, put deodorant on.
Yeah.
Like, if you smell bad, I don't care what you look like.
Cover your toes.
And cover your toes. Straight up.
Even if you're in socks or whatever, that's fine. But like,
Yes.
cover your toes.
Cover your toes. I really don't understand the slide sock situation or like the Croc thing in the gym, but I can tolerate that over slides with no socks. Like why are your toes out? We are not at the beach.
It's weird.
Get your toes away.
I don't know why, but it feels uncomfortable. In airports and in gyms, when I see people's toes, I feel weird. I don't know why the airport thing, something
Instant
about
cringe.
it. Like even if they're just like sandals, or it feels inappropriate. I don't know why. Yeah, I think I told you this when I saw you at the gym last, and I said it once on the podcast, I'll tell the story again, but I was at Illuminate where you train when they first opened and had shoes on and dropped a 45-pound plate on my foot.
Shut up.
Yes, straight down. I was all excited because I was using the belt squat for the first time.
I totally forgot about this.
I had never tried a belt squat, so I was like, that was the first thing I did. Like warmed up and then went straight to that because I like have back issues, so it's like so much easier on my back and whatever. And so I was just moving one of the plates, grabbed it too loosely. I feel like the plates there have a weird
They're
grip
very
too.
thin.
Yeah, they're very
thin.
Like,
yeah.
And I just straight down on my big toe.
And like I'm never coming back to this stupid gym.
Oh, I've never been back. I probably
we have
will
gotten
never.
a lot more like thicker plates.
Oh, well, good.
Yeah.
But at first I've never broken anything before. Yeah. So I just was like, ow. You know, sometimes you like smash your finger between dumbbells or whatever. Yeah. And so I was just like, oh man, that really hurt. And I think it's because it kind of went numb at first. And then I like did another set and I was like kind of limping and I sat down and I was like just feeling it. And it was like the throbbing at that point. I was like, yeah, that's broken. And I was just silent. I'm not talking to you. I'm like, hopefully nobody saw me drop that. And then I went to the bathroom and took my shoe off and it was just blood everywhere because the skin had like busted open.
Oh,
and so
my God.
I literally just like put my shoe back on, literally wobbled out.
You didn't tell anybody?
No, I was so embarrassed.
Oh my God.
And I also was like, well, what are they going to do? Why am I going to embarrass myself telling them that I just broke my toe and they're going to be like, sorry.
Yeah.
And I had I was there for like 15 minutes and like, what a waste of $20 or whatever it was to like try the gym.
Yeah.
And then I went, I was driving home and I was like, so what do I do? And I'm not really like a big go to the doctor person.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, maybe this is a situation where I should go to the doctor. Like, I think I broke a bone. Then I was like, I don't know. I mean, it's a toe. So again, what are they going to do? Right. You know, but charge me an ER bill. And so I called my friend who is a nurse and she was like, there's nothing they can do for the broken toe if it's really broken. But she's like, if your skin busted open, like just go get some super glue, because that's what they would use at the ER.
Shut up.
So I like went to Walgreens. I'm like hobbling through Walgreens looking for super glue. Went home, cleaned up my toe, literally super glued the skin shut, and then just let it heal. To this day, it's not like the toe is not normal.
That's a baller move. I'm not gonna lie, like that's kind of gangster.
Honestly, you never realize how much you need your big toe until you don't have it.
Yeah.
It was. Sure. I am not even kidding you. It was so painful. The next day, and I had an event to go to the next day with a friend that was like walking around like a conference place. It was like this wellness conference I was really excited to go to.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I think I'll be fine. Like, let me just ice it. I'll be fine tomorrow. I could not even walk the next day.
No,
yeah,
absolutely not.
It was so bad. And it was like definitely like a straight clean break, because another person told me, like, well, if you have like a horizontal bruise across the bone, like that means it's like severed. I was like, oh yeah, it's severed.
Oh, it's for sure severed.
So have not been back.
The tip of your toe is just like
I couldn't move it. I couldn't anything. The nail fell off. It died, fell off.
Oh.
This was like a year-long healing process.
I've never dropped a weight on my foot before. I mean, you don't have any wood in here.
Knock on some wood. Here you go.
Knock on some wood. But I can't even imagine.
But that's what I was going to say about the whole sandals thing. Now I would never.
Yeah, totally.
I hardly even will like hold a plate over my feet. I'm like holding it out like this just in case. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, awesome. So moving into more like gym talk.
Yeah.
There's so much stuff on the internet about working out. I'm sure you know.
Girl.
I'm sure you see things that probably like piss you off and stuff, but there's so much content on the internet now. There's so many different diets. There's so many different types of workouts, studios, Pilates, Orange Theory, like, you know, just so much.
Yeah.
What, with your expertise, your experience for a woman's health and like overall health, wellness, and also to get like the best feminine figure, what should women be doing for workouts?
So, ditch the excessive cardio and get under some freaking weights.
Yeah.
Because I have this conversation with women literally almost, I don't want to say daily, but very often, where they're afraid of getting too bulky. They're afraid of lifting weights because they don't want to look manly.
Right.
And so a lot of times I'll ask them, well, pull up a figure on Instagram, whoever, a physique that you want to look like. And so they'll pull it up, and 10 times out of 10, the person that they pull up has like 15 more pounds of muscle on them than the person that I'm talking to. Mm-hmm. And so the thing about a shape, like a body shape, is that shape happens from muscle. And so even when even like if you put fat on top of the muscle, it shapes your fat prettier.
Right.
Because it has muscle to help shape it.
Yeah.
But if we're talking about like, you know, an hourglass figure is literally built in the gym under weights because you have to have muscle tissue in order to create glutes. You have to have muscle tissue in order, like you can build a butt. You don't have to just be stuck with a flat butt the rest of your life. Like you can build that with resistance training. Muscle tissue literally, physically cannot grow without resistance.
Explain that, like the hourglass figure, like how that's actually built. Like what are you working on to create that?
So you're working on your legs, quads, hamstrings, glutes. You would, part of an hourglass figure is a flatter tummy, right? Or just flatter in comparison to the rest of your body.
Waist.
Yeah, smaller waist. And if you are resistance training, you're working your core almost always, if you're underneath weights. But also nutrition is a big part of that. Having more muscle helps you burn fat. there's so many nuances to it that it's
Yeah.
hard to just give a blanket statement,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But the idea is glutes, hamstrings, quads, being in the gym and eating clean 90% of the time,
Yeah.
you are going to cut down on visceral fat around your tummy or around your midsection.
Because the more muscle you have, the more fat you can burn off.
Yeah.
Essentially.
I
I was always told, like, muscle is like the gas in the tank of your body. And if you're trying to burn fat off, if you have no gas in the tank, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
You're just going to be, like, essentially burning calories.
Yeah, exactly. And that doesn't help build shape at all.
Yeah.
Just burning calories, right? Like you have to, but you also have to fuel yourself to even build the muscle, which
Yeah.
comes in
Yeah.
nutrition wise.
Yeah. And so nutrition wise, what are the, like, key components in someone's diet, either to eat or not to eat, for being in shape and healthy?
So majority of the time, the women that I speak to, that come to me for whatever they want to do, honestly, whether it's lose weight, tone up, build muscle, which is the same thing as toning up. 9 times out of 10, they're not eating enough food. And 10 times out of 10, they're not eating enough protein. They're trying to avoid carbs at all costs, and they're eating like 2-3 times a day. And so I would say, like, protein has to be a priority, period. There's so often that I have conversations with women that are like, I ask them how much food they eat in a day, and they're like, oh, I eat, a good amount of protein. I'm like, okay, about how much do you think you, in grams, about how much do you think you eat? I probably eat about 120. Well, whenever we actually lay out everything, they're only eating like 70 to 80 grams. And that is about how much you should eat to avoid malnutrition. So just for the bare minimum functions in your body, like hormones, hair, skin, and nails, energy, like that's how much protein you should be eating for just your body to function on the very basic level. To build muscle, now we're talking about building muscle, and we're talking about getting stronger in the gym. You need extra amino acids, which come from protein. And so I always tell people, typically try to get, now there are nuances to this, but if you can get 1 gram of protein per 1 pound of body weight that you are, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
Right? Now there's nuances to that. If we're talking about someone who is, medically obese, like, and she needs to lose 50 pounds, then I'd probably put her protein intake at whatever pounds she needs to be, right? If she's 200 pounds, she needs to be 150.
Right.
I'm not going to have her eating 200 grams of protein. I'm going to have her eating about 140, 150.
Okay.
So yeah, there's some nuances to that. But 70 to 80 grams is just
What
not
are the
nearly enough.
most dense forms of protein?
Meat.
Yeah. Thank you.
Meat.
Yeah.
I mean, just eat meat. Like, so yeah, and that's it. That can be a frustrating conversation.
Yeah.
Because
What do people say? I mean, I'm a big meat fan.
Yeah.
Quality meat.
Quality meat.
Because also, like, in this country, meat can be very sketchy. Like, we're at the point of lab grown meat.
Yeah.
So, but if you're talking like high quality, like organic grass-fed beef, I'm a big fan of that. I'm not a fan of, like, unless you have some sort of medical condition, like all these like fad, vegetarian, vegan, which is not even really vegan, it's processed.
Yeah.
So what do you hear about that? What are people thinking? What are women thinking about eating meat?
So typically, I mean, majority of them, I mean, we live in Texas, right? So
That's true.
Majority of us are eating meat, and we don't have a problem with it. It's just that they're not eating enough. Like, they're only eating, like, most women are skipping breakfast, right? So they skip breakfast, they don't have protein there. Then they wait until lunch and they only have, like, you know, a small chicken breast or whatever, maybe only 20 grams of protein. And then they don't eat again until they get to dinner and they have another small whatever.
Yeah.
And that right there, I mean, if you're only eating 2 meals a day, like, even if it's 2 meals with meat in it, chicken and beef, you're still only getting like 60 grams, if that.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times I'll have people tell me, you know, oh, well, I had yogurt and that has protein. I'm like, yeah, that has protein. Almost everything has protein. Broccoli has protein.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean it's a protein source.
Right.
And so what I typically tell people is like, yeah, you can have yogurt, throw a half a scoop of protein powder in there. Then it's a protein source.
Right.
Right. So it's hard getting, breaking this idea of like stuff that people have found on, whether it's, you know, recipes on Pinterest, high protein, whatevers.
What is
or
this,
Instagram.
what is like sort of a healthy relationship to food look like in your opinion? Because you've got all these like diets, you're trying to follow the latest trends, or there's so much like we're saying controversy about what's good, what's bad. So I have found a lot of women, especially if they're just not super educated on it, like that's just not their thing, they get caught up in like, well, I should be doing this, or like, what about this? And then it becomes almost like obsessive.
Yes. It absolutely does.
Yeah. Like there's a girl I'm thinking of who she was always on like the latest, whatever, you know, trendy diet was. And she said, no, she's like, no, I guess people are doing this thing called like intuitive eating. Like, I guess I'm going to try that. I was like, so you mean like just eating?
Literally just eating, whatever.
So what do you think is the best way to conceptualize your relationship to food, or like just a healthy relationship with dieting?
Yeah. So first, like, we have to break down what the beliefs are for the individual, right? Because not everyone comes to me with those types of beliefs. So it all has to be broken down to like, okay, what do I believe about food? What do I believe about nutrition? Do I believe that I can't just eat freely and be okay? Do I believe that I have to be on a, you know, super obsessive diet or a meal plan or keto or, you know, paleo or whatever it is? Do I think that, you know, whatever, we have to break down the belief system and then educate. I think that the problem is that women don't have enough education when it comes to nutrition and how their body works.
For sure.
The only information that they get are from like magazine articles that, oh, well, I guess not really anymore. People don't really read magazines anymore.
Well, I mean, you
but
get
like how-tos,
that kind of content on
right, that kind of content on social media.
Back in the day, it was definitely magazines,
for sure.
You know,
and it was
Cosmo
all like
and like women's health and all that. Yeah.
Yes. How to get a size 2 in 10 weeks or whatever it was. And then we went through the fads of like 30-day cleanses and all this stuff. And so how I navigate my clients is, how do we figure out what is sustainable for you to do for the rest of your life? That is healthy. Something that you can actually stick to, that you feel good about, and that you feel like, okay, I can build a plate and know that this is good for my hormones, this is good for, you know, I'm not attaching emotion to it or shame or guilt or anything like that, and I can sustain this for the rest of my life. There's so many different facets to it, because there's so much shame and guilt that is surrounded by women's relationship with food. And that's a lot of times where I see, eating disorders come into play.
Yeah.
You know, binge eating. And so there's two different facets to shame around food. The shame of, oh, I'm eating this burger and these fries and I feel shame about that, or I feel guilty for this.
Yeah.
But then there's also shame about eating healthy food, because that, a majority of the time, a healthy choice for women is not because they want to feed their body good things. It's not because they know it's good for them. And it's not because, you know, it's always because I messed up last weekend.
Like a punishment.
It's a punishment.
Yeah.
I messed up last weekend, or
I'm making
I'm
up
restricting.
for...
Right.
Yeah.
I'm restricting because I know that I'm going to be bad this weekend, or you know, I want to be this size, and it's all around, and that is all rooted in shame. And so if we can get down to the root of like, okay, why are we ashamed of this? Why are we constantly in this cycle? Then you're not going to binge. Like, if you can just build your plate and eat enough macronutrients in every meal, every day, odds are you're not even going to want to binge. But also, you're going to be able to have a burger and fries and feel no shame about it.
Right.
Feel no guilt.
Yeah.
Because you didn't restrict yourself up to that point, and you can just stop when you feel full.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
What is macronutrients would be what? Protein, fat, and carbs?
Yeah, protein,
Okay.
carbs, and fat.
Okay.
So yeah, I think that just the education around like what do all of these things do for our bodies, and why do we need them, and just breaking down the belief system, and then working up from there.
Kind of the same thing in a way of like the body image topic of like it really goes back to your mindset.
Truly.
Yeah.
Truly.
And something I've also realized is like the shame also comes from other people. Like it's coming from exterior sources. And the thing about that is you can't win.
Yeah.
Someone's always going to have an opinion or something to say about what you're eating or not eating.
Yeah.
Like it's very important to me. I take a lot of pride in eating very clean. Like, and it's not like a calorie counting type of thing. For me, it's like the content of what I'm eating, where did it come from, what are the ingredients, what oil was it cooked in, you know, where did the cow get raised, that kind of, that's what's important to me.
Yeah.
But people will shame me for that too.
Yeah.
If I'm like, you know, no, I don't eat at Chick-fil-A. I don't.
Right.
Because that doesn't align with my beliefs on what I want to put in my body.
Right.
There's shame for not eating that. But then they're also going to shame someone who eats fast food all the time and never cooks at home.
Exactly.
So
Exactly. There's no winning.
Yeah, you cannot win.
Yeah.
Or like drinking, like what you mentioned alcohol earlier. That's another big thing too, which maybe you see that as a trend with clients too. But because alcohol has a lot of sugar, it's going to mess with your blood sugar, hormones. It's a lot of calories if you're drinking a lot of it.
Yeah.
But again, you can't win.
Yeah.
You go sober, people have something to say. You
course.
drink every weekend, people have something to say.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
breaking down the belief system, I have found really comes down to, are you internalizing what other people are projecting onto you?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that it's typically the ones that stick the most and that have the most effect on us are the ones that are the closest to us. So what I find is that I pretty much always ask clients, especially the ones that struggle with body image, that struggle with their relationship with food, I always ask them, what was your mom like growing up? Like, what was her diet like? How did she talk about herself? How does she talk about you and your body? Because oftentimes the beliefs that we have about these things stem from our parents.
Yeah.
Or stem from someone that's close to us, right? So yeah, like we can be, you're right, those external sources, like we can't win.
Yeah.
But that goes for anything, right? Like moms have the same issue with,
Yes.
right?
The
Like
shame.
the shame around how they're going to have their baby, you know, or what they're going to feed their baby once
Literally
they have the
from
baby.
like the day people know they're pregnant. It
Exactly.
starts.
It's all about that. I mean, even with wedding planning, I've had
Yeah.
people be like, oh, well, you're not going to do this. You're not going to do that. And, you know, it's just so but to go back to the point, I think that the main thing that people respond to on that level are the people who they were closest with growing up and who really reinforced all of those beliefs.
Yeah.
And so there are times where I have to say, hey, look, this is out of my scope of practice. Like, we can talk about this together, but you also need to seek, you know, some counseling or therapy or,
Right.
you know, to help you with this specific disorder if it's to that point. But I have had to, I mean, there have been times in my own life, especially when I was a bodybuilder, that I've had to tell my mom, like, hey, just don't make comments about my body. It's just not helpful for me right now.
Yeah.
And so I always encourage my clients to set that boundary with their mom and say, like, hey, you going forward, you're not allowed to make comments about the way that I look, whether it's good or bad.
Yeah.
Because even the good comments reinforce, like,
When you're not like that,
yes,
you feel bad.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. It reinforces, and it perks you up in a way that's like, oh, now I'm in a good mood because I got good reinforcement from my mom.
Yeah.
Where really, like, the good reinforcement that you get shouldn't be affecting your mood like that.
That's interesting.
So yeah, and then of course, like, nutrition wise, we work through how to navigate the actual, like, the binge eating or the restricting. And a lot of times it's just boiled down to making sure they're eating enough macronutrients throughout the day. Getting enough to satiate them so that at the end of the night, they haven't starved themselves all day and they don't devour down,
Right.
you know.
Do you have an opinion on Ozempic?
Ooh. I do.
That came to mind because it's a quick fix nowadays that's literally just handed out like candy.
It is. I think that Ozempic is great for people with type 2 diabetes because that's what it was created for.
Yeah.
I think that you are absolutely right that it is handed out way too generously. I mean, you can literally just get it offline now. You don't even have to go to a doctor.
Wow.
You can get it and I hear so many ads about it anymore.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, everywhere. So I think that it's dangerous. I think it can be very useful. I'm not a medical professional. I've had to talk about this with clients all the time. I actually have a client that I'm currently helping get off of Ozempic.
Okay.
She's 23 and she was prescribed Ozempic when she was not even overweight.
Oh, wow.
She just wanted to lose weight. And she was struggling to do that.
She's only 23?
Yes.
That's crazy.
And her doctor was like, oh, here, you have PCOS, so here's medication for that. And also you want to lose weight and you're struggling to? Great, here's Ozempic.
Wow.
So I've talked to doctors about this, and the scary thing is that this medication was given out to doctors with no protocol to get people off of it. So the doctors who are trying to help get people off of Ozempic it's literally just trial and error. They're just like, I mean, they're essentially doing the same thing that I'm doing. And because I talked to a doctor about it before I, started with this client, and she was like, it's all trial and error.
Wow.
And she's like, we don't have a direct, protocol.
You know what else
they
did that with? Opiates.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. It's crazy.
Not to compare severe drug addiction to Ozempic, but I mean, just the idea of throwing out a pharmaceutical drug for pretty much anyone to have.
Yeah.
If you have this small pain point,
right,
being your weight or physical pain.
Yeah. And it's
with
the idea of just instant gratification.
Plan. Yeah.
Right. And I can almost, there was a girl that walked in to the gym the other day, and I hadn't seen her in a while, or like in a couple months. And I saw her and I was like, she's on Ozempic.
Yeah.
I know it. There's just a certain look. The look is malnourished.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because what it does is, all it does is suppress your appetite. Right? And so
And I from what I understand, typically it's just going to eat, your body's going to start eating its muscle.
Yeah, and it's catabolic. And so now, do I think that there are situations that it can be useful? Yes. If you have tried everything under the sun, right? That's not medication. If you have tried to get your hormones in check and you still can't lose weight, if you have tried to eat right for at least a year, worked with a nutrition coach,
and you still can't. That's a key word, year.
I mean,
not 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, shoot. Because, yeah. So if you have exercised regularly, right, and you still can't lose weight, if you've done all the things and we're still at a point where you're not losing weight, which 99.9% of the time, that's not going to be the case. If you have truly exhausted your resources, because our body was not made or created to be obese, then we can talk about Ozempic and getting on a medication, right? But odds are, if you have absolutely exhausted your resources, there's just this, there's this very toxic and unhealthy mindset that has gone around on social media that are, well, I don't know if it's social media, but that has gone around, especially in the medical world, that our body can't do the things on its own that it's created to do. And
yeah, we were not built with an Ozempic deficiency.
Right. Yeah. Like what? Exactly. So I think that, like, I had a client who was really struggling to lose weight. And even I was like, it had been like 7 months of working with her. And she needed to lose a significant amount of weight. And I was like, girl, the only thing that I can tell you is that I need you to get your hormones looked at. And she had tried to get them done by a couple different doctors, and that's a whole other issue. But I finally got her to go to Dr. Rowley.
Oh,
the
really?
one that you recommended.
Oh,
yes.
awesome.
Yeah, I just remembered that you're the one that recommended me.
Yes.
I finally got her to go there, and she's lost like 15 pounds. But
Amazing.
part of the conversation in her frustration was like, she was like, I'm not going to do it, but I just wish that I could just get on Ozempic. And she was like, because I know it will work. And I'm like, but then you'll be a slave to it the rest of your life.
Right. And you won't be healthy.
And you won't be healthy, and you won't have figured out the root problem of why you're not losing weight. Your body was not meant to be this way. And so anyways, she started working with Dr. Rowley, who's a holistic doctor, and she's down.
I'm gonna tag. I think I've tagged her before, but I'll tag her again in the episode description. She's a functional medicine doctor here in Houston. I don't know if she does telemedicine. She might. But she's awesome. Did you ever go see her?
I have not, because I have my own holistic doctor or functional medicine doctor
but her
already.
Clinic
but
is
I have
awesome.
I have 2 clients now that are going to her.
Really?
Yeah. The one I didn't recommend, she came to me and she was like, I'm seeing Dr. Rowley. And I was like, yes.
Awesome.
Praise.
Yes. Everyone that works in her clinic is female.
Yeah.
Which I love. I mean, guys are great too, but I have like all of my like wellness people in my life, like her, my massage therapist, my acupuncturist, like everyone's a woman, and I just feel like it's so much more comforting. Yeah. And there's just an understanding between you that like typically a male practitioner or whatever doesn't understand. Even my chiropractor is a female now. Yeah. I used to have a guy, but I just love that about her, that she's just like all about women, and she makes her own like supplements. She has an amazing like website now where you can buy online with her own compounded supplements and stuff.
Oh, interesting.
With her, I did a gut health detox because I had like severe, they call it gut dysbiosis, which is a severe imbalance of like your microbiome, bacteria and everything, which was just from, I think, 20 plus years of treating my body wrongly. Everything from antibiotics to eating sugar to going to Mexico, like just
Yeah.
everything. It just like finally one day my gut was like, we're done. This
Yeah.
is crashing and burning.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it was bad. Like it was to the point I was losing like control of my bowels.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah. Like
Oh
there was
my
one day that I
gosh.
went to go walk, and I'm being honest about that because like I know I'm not the only one.
Yeah, surely.
Like I literally
No.
one time went to go walk in the trail in the heights, and I got there and parked, and I was like, I can't get out of the car. Like I was like pinching. I was like, I gotta go back home. And after that point, I was like, this is not okay. Something's wrong.
Something's wrong. Something's
Yeah,
not right.
and something was wrong.
Yeah.
And so I did a completely no medication. Everything was based on diet and supplementation. Cleaned it up, and now I'm on a detox protocol from mold. I think that's what we talked about. This house had mold in it. It doesn't anymore, so don't worry. But
oh my gosh, we
got
could
like
talk for hours.
severe. Well, and it scared me because my sister had severe mold poisoning years prior.
Yeah.
And she was like really, 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 really sick. And she already didn't have much leeway. Like she's like 90 pounds, like just teeny tiny.
Yeah.
And like it scared us. Then when I put two and two together, I was like, this is mold, and she's like, it's killing her.
Yeah.
So anyways, when I started feeling the mold and they found it in my AC unit, I was like, because it's not something that just goes away. Like
No.
even if you get rid of the source,
Oh my gosh.
it like inhabits in your body.
Yep.
So now I'm on this mold detox protocol. Well, mold also takes up residence in your gut lining,
Yep.
and parasites nest inside of mold pockets.
So you're also on a parasite cleanse.
Well, it's naturally happening with the mold detoxes. People are gonna be like, "What the hell is Natalie talking about?" But
No,
this is
I've
real.
done it too. I've literally done it in the last 2 years. I've had to do like multiple parasite cleanses, and I am personally on my second mold detox right now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Especially living in Houston, we're exposed to a lot of mold.
Yes.
And you're
It's
never
such a
going to
problem.
completely escape mold. I mean, it's everywhere, but like to have it in copious amounts. And then also if your body is not detoxing it properly, which mine was not, then it just builds and builds and builds. And hormone issues with weight,
Cognitive.
parasites, like literally anything that cancer, like anything wrong with you, I swear it goes back to parasites.
I swear.
And to be candid again, the amount of worms, unidentified objects coming out of my body, I'm like, at first I was like,
It's shocking.
First
It's
I was
truly
like,
shocking. Are
you
you at
know-
the point where you're sending pictures to your doctor? Because I was doing
I have never taken pictures. I have never, I
So
mean,
just me.
I'm like analyzing it. Like I'll get a flashlight out because I'm like, because it's like, I feel like second nature to be like, what's coming out? You know, dogs sniff their poop for a reason.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I need to know what's inside of me and how many worms are there?
How many more?
Yeah, exactly.
I know.
But I mean, we're like one of the only countries, like Western civilization, that don't do parasite cleanses like
know.
on a regular basis.
Yeah, crazy because it takes care of
So-
the actual source.
Yeah, but all that to say, like since doing all that, my health is just like accelerated ever since working with Dr. Rowley.
Yeah.
And I mean, I already on the gut cleanse, like got rid of so much, rebalanced everything. And then it was like this phase 2 where it's like really happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's wild. I know. I had mold in my last apartment, and that's the reason that I left. And it was like, I lived there for 14 months and they would not do anything. I was like, because there wasn't any real visible mold, but I was like, I know that I know that I know that this is mold. Well, I did a mold toxicity test with my doctor, and it came back and it was like my endocrine system was affected, which is, hormones. And so I was like, well, that makes sense. And then also my brain was being affected. And so I was having all of these like cognitive issues.
Like brain fog.
Brain fog to the extreme. I was so tired. I would get like shooting pains in my head all the time.
Yep.
Tension headaches, vertigo. And so then my symptoms started coming back a couple months ago. And I was like, crap, am I in mold again? Well, sure enough, there was like a water leak in my closet.
Oh no.
Thankfully, thank God, this apartment got it fixed right away, and so now it's no big deal. But I'm having to go through the mold detox again because of it.
Yeah.
So
That's what I'm saying. It doesn't just like go away when you get rid of the mold. Yeah, I had severe brain fog, like vertigo, dizziness, being like disoriented.
Yes.
It was like at its peak, and I was like, I can't even sleep in my house because I would wake up and be like bumping into things, literally, or like super congested.
Yes.
Every single day. And I was like house hopping like the week before they came to fix it because I was so like just couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
And I went over to stay the night at my friend's house in Katy, and I was like, this is someone who I've known for 15 years. Like, I know where her house is.
Yeah.
And I drove past her house and I was like, where am I? Like, where's her house?
Yeah.
And then I was like, this is not okay. Like, this is dangerous.
Yeah.
But yeah, severe,
bad.
I mean, so many, like a long list of symptoms.
Yeah.
So yeah, anyways, I'm a
Wild.
big advocate for functional medicine, especially with women's health, because there's so much in traditional medicine with women's health that doesn't get addressed.
Like majority of things.
Yeah.
Almost everything.
Yeah.
Well, it's because functional doctors, they actually spend time listening to your story. Mm-hmm. And, I'm not going to sit here and say that every single, doctor that we have here in the U.S. is a piece of trash. But typically, you don't get more than 10 minutes with your doctor. Mm-hmm. And they write you a prescription, they send you on your way, and then you don't update them, And so it's just like, how can you truly fix what's going on in my body if you don't know anything past 10 minutes of conversation?
Right.
And like
You
a
can't.
couple blood tests that you may or may not have pulled a full panel for.
Yeah.
Because like that's a whole other issue.
Right. Yeah.
So that like Dr. Raleigh has been amazing for my clients because the one going back to Ozempic that was considering it,
Yeah.
I was like, please, just one last go
Yeah.
at giving this doctor that I found,
Yeah.
a chance. And she's down 15
Also,
pounds.
you can go to ifm.org to find a functional medicine doctor wherever you live. Those are like there's all different kinds of holistic doctors, but those are like certified, like went to medical school for functional specifically. So I'll tag that. But I also wanted to ask you on the Ozempic topic, what is like what is realistically a healthy body composition for women? So like around our age, 20 to 40-ish. As far as when I say body composition, I mean like your ratio of fat to muscle, weight, height.
Yeah. So first of all, let's address BMI really quick because BMI is super unreliable and a lot of times
It's very toxic.
Yeah. It just doesn't even make sense because I am considered obese on the BMI scale
Yeah.
when I'm not even close to obese.
Right.
My body fat percentage is like, I don't even know, 21, maybe like around 21%.
Which is super good.
And so, I mean, like, especially for like Mason, my fiance, he's, 205 pounds at 5'8". And he would also be considered obese on the BMI scale.
Right.
So let's just like throw BMI completely out the window. I think that a healthy body fat percentage for women, I don't even necessarily want to say just in our age group, I think for everyone, is under 27, 28, definitely under 30%. The more fat that you have, the more subject you are to disease, to cancer, to really everything. I mean, to put it frankly, the fatter you are, the closer you are to death. And so if we can keep that number down, like I think that, you don't have to be in the teens to be healthy, body fat percentage wise. And that number looks different on everyone, right? Like 21% on me looks totally different than it looks like someone who's 5'7", right? I'm only 5'2".
Yeah.
So yeah, and then also where you hold your fat is important too, because if you're someone who unfortunately holds their fat in their stomach area or their midsection, then that is all fat that's sitting closer to your organs. So you may
makes sense.
you may be 22% fat, but it's all in your midsection, and that's not good either. You know, so it's all kind of it can be relative, but I think that across the board, staying under the 30% mark for most women is pretty good.
Yeah.
So
Do you recommend checking that often? Like I personally, I don't own a scale, probably never will, but I don't like stepping on a scale.
Yeah.
But body fat percentage, I think, you know, is more relevant, more important than like your weight.
For sure. I don't think that unless you have a specific goal and or you are overweight and needing to lose weight and needing to lose fat specifically, then I don't think it's super important to know your body fat percentage all the time. I think I check mine maybe twice a year.
Okay.
And that's purely based out of curiosity. But that's just because I know that I'm not obese. I don't need to, like, I know that I'm healthy. I don't need to be checking numbers just to know numbers' sake, right? No one is walking up to you being like, hey, what's your body fat percentage? You know, like no guy, for the purpose of the podcast, no man cares what your body fat percentage is. And so yeah, I think that that's relative to the person, but if you are healthy, if you are active, eating clean majority of the time, and you're not clearly overweight, then I just don't think that it's that important. I think that
I agree.
Especially with women who they hold so much emotion when it comes to the scale, like those numbers freak them out, and it, you know, that can cause even more weight gain because cortisol spikes and, you know, so.
Well, and you could have been, that's why I just don't like to weigh myself. I mean, unless I'm concerned, like, there's been times where I've like gotten really sick, like the whole gut issue. And I was like, you know, my pants don't fit. Like, what do I weigh? Like, this is a problem. Yeah. But otherwise, it's like, I'm not happier after I weigh myself. Yeah. So I don't need to know that I'm like a couple pounds less than I would want to be or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Because like how many times have you like woken up one day and you're like, oh, I feel good today. Like, you know, maybe you're ovulating or something, you feel good. And then you're like, well, let me just get on the scale to see. And then you are not happy with the number on the scale. And then your day's ruined. Yeah. And it's like, I felt good when I woke up. So but there are nuances to that too. Like, okay, if that is the case for someone, let's figure out why. Like if you hold that much emotion to a number on the scale instead of just using it as data, like maybe that's something that also needs to be addressed.
Yeah, back to the mindset.
Yeah, but that's all, I mean, that's like emotional, mental stuff that.
I think you segued perfectly too into like how this all ties back into dating and relationships. But how do you think our relationship to our body and body image affects dating? And like, because you've been on both sides of like bad relationships and good, maybe you have some insight into that, like how your own self-image, self-esteem plays a role in the relationships you end up in.
Yeah. I think it has less to do with how we view our body of who we end up with, and has more to do with just our overall relationship with ourselves. Right? So like, just for instance, I have been with, you know, X amount of people since I was in high school, right? I've had boyfriends, lots of boyfriends. And I have had different body shapes in every single one of those relationships, right? Like I've looked different. I've had more muscle in this one. I've had less fat in that one. I've gone through, you know, a phase where I drank a lot of alcohol and I had more fat on me in this one. I went through a bodybuilding phase with this one. And so, but the reason why all of those relationships didn't work out is because I was jumping from one to the next, and I was never spending time alone with myself for long enough to address the reason why I was choosing people that weren't good for me. And it wasn't until I finally took a step back away from dating altogether and focused on my relationship with God and went to therapy and figured out, you know, why I kept choosing the things that I was choosing.
Yeah.
And 0% of it had to do with how I viewed my body. It all had to do with how I grew up or different experiences that I've had in the past, trauma, you know, whatever. Now, maybe that's not the case for some people, but I think that our body image and our relationship with our body has it goes a lot deeper than just that.
Yeah.
And it's all correlated to, you know, past things. And so when it comes to dating, when it comes to how we choose a partner, I think that it's about getting right with yourself and kind of going back to like allowing yourself to be in a more selfless state, because if it's all about you and it's all selfish, then you're not entering into the relationship in the right way. It's not going to work out.
Yeah.
Right? It's all about what can I get from this person rather than being confident in who you are and this is who I am.
Knowing what you can bring to
Knowing
someone
what
else.
you can bring to the situation.
Yeah.
Right? To the relationship. And, you know, with me and Mason, like, we were both on a very, like, get right with ourselves, get right with the Lord type journey before we met. And so when we met, it was like, it just was healthy. I don't know. Like, we didn't try to force each other into fitting a certain mold. There weren't things that I wanted to change about him and vice versa. But I was honestly just very confident in who God says I am.
Yeah.
And whereas in my previous relationships, that wasn't the case. And so I was allowing things that I would never allow now. And I was just putting my blinders on to all the red flags.
Yeah.
But looking back, I knew that those things were not okay.
Yeah.
But I just let it slide because I didn't know my self-worth at the time. So now I do think that there's a healthy balance of like knowing your self-worth and also not being like too picky.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think that there can definitely be people who are like overthink things that don't need to be overthought.
Okay, yeah.
And so
I was going to point out, because I've been having this conversation with a friend who's newly like single again.
Yeah.
And she's probably, she's like maybe 5'3", 5'4".
Yeah.
And you said your fiance is 5'8", and so I keep telling her, and she's like, he has to be like 6'3". And I'm like,
no, he doesn't.
I'm like, dude, you are 5'4".
Yeah,
like
no.
he could be 5'7", 5'8", and still taller than you with heels on.
With heels on.
What is the obsession with height? I don't get it. I'm taller, and I'm not even obsessed with that. Like,
let me just tell y'all something right now. The hugging situation with someone who's shorter is way better. Like, because my last relationship, I was with someone who was 6'1". I think he was 6'1". Or maybe 6 foot. And it was like, when we hugged, like, his chest and his pecs were like, it was like this. And it was just so uncomfortable. And I wanted to get out of the hug as fast as possible. But with someone who, you know, those short kings, like your head just nestles right on the shoulder.
Yeah.
It's right there.
That makes sense.
I know.
Because I have typically always dated, I'm 5'5.5", so I usually end up with someone like around 5'11", maybe 5'10", like occasionally a 6 foot.
Yeah.
But for me, that's like like with heels on, he's going to be like just right above me.
Right
and the
there.
hugs are good. Like you just nestle right there.
Exactly.
You're right. Yes, I never thought about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. But yeah, honestly,
Yeah, so don't write off guys who are quote unquote short.
No, because
especially if you're short.
if they're good to you and they're good for you, then that makes up.
Yeah.
This sounds, I didn't mean it like this. It was going to come out dirty. I was going to say it's going to make up all the inches. But I meant height.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, but not being
yeah.
too picky.
But not being too picky.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like I've heard girls just overanalyze things that are like, oh, I would never allow whatever, something silly that's not even a big deal because I'm just worth more than that. It's like, okay, let's talk about, like, there's still some sense of grace that you have to extend towards your partner.
Yeah. Well, and no one
that allows
them
to be
perfect.
Human. Right.
You're not gonna, the perfect person doesn't exist.
No.
Yeah, and even if you find someone who's a cloned version of you, which isn't gonna happen, you're still not gonna like them. Like 100%.
Yeah, there's gonna be seasons where you can't stand them.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. What I feel like what you were saying is it kind of comes down to like real internal like confidence.
Yeah.
In like who you are. I think that's what I have found too is like when I've done the work on myself as a person, then it kind of, I don't want to say it makes all the body stuff concerns go away, but it kind of does.
It kind of does.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And I used to have a lot more insecurity in dating and relationships with like, you know, my body, like, is he gonna like this, or like, what's his type, or like asking guys like, well, what's your type, knowing that whatever he says is gonna hurt my feelings. Totally. Like, so I'm with you that I think it comes down to like real, true confidence. And you work with so many women that I'm sure go on these like journeys, I would imagine. What do you think is like, or what have you seen be the biggest driver of like women developing confidence in themselves?
Yeah. That's a perfect question for actually what I wanted to say, because I think that, no, I don't think. I know that when you continuously show up for yourself and you continuously choose good things for yourself, so that can correlate back to choosing good foods for your body, healthy foods, honoring the commitments that you're making to the gym. That in and of itself, when you continuously for long periods of time honor commitments that you told yourself you were going to do, you naturally build self-confidence.
Yeah.
So, but it's about building those habits, and it's about practice. It's absolutely about just practicing. I told my client last night, Simone Biles did not get to be the greatest gymnast of all time just because she was a freak as a 6-year-old in a gymnastics class.
Yeah.
She was.
Yeah.
She was that. But she didn't get to be the greatest of all time without practice. She was in the gym 30 plus hours a week.
Yeah.
Doing that. And so when it comes to self-confidence, that it just comes with practice. It comes with constantly changing the narrative, showing up for yourself, and honoring your commitments that you're making to yourself.
Yeah.
I think that what I find is that people are scared to face their stuff. They're scared to face the things that are, because they're comfortable. They're comfortable in what they're currently doing. And they know that if they want to be this ideal person, that it's going to stretch them in ways and it's going to be hard.
Yeah.
And, you know, talking through that is honestly a big part of my job and what I do.
Being a therapist. Yeah.
Truly.
Yeah. That is that's so good. And that's like a big part of, so like this new like segment that I'm incorporating, I'm just calling it Glow Up, because it's like just, you know, people like you who have professional insight and advice into how we can like glow up as people and self-improve. And it's about doing the work, you know, because someone could be listening to this and like hearing on what you're saying and learning and all this, but like actually going out and making yourself uncomfortable and doing it, putting it into practice is the hard part.
Yeah.
But that's the only way you're going to grow, you know, and change.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
When I was single, I would take solo trips all the time by myself.
Really?
Yeah, just like I went camping, just me and my dog one time in Austin, and I would get, or like I went to a concert by myself in Nashville because it was like last minute and I wanted to see the band.
Fun.
And people would tell me, like girls would tell me all the time, like, I don't know how you're just like traveling by yourself. And I'm like, because it's just, when you're not afraid to be alone, you build a certain confidence when you do scary things, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be solo traveling, right?
Yeah.
But you build a certain confidence in yourself when you do hard things and scary things because you prove to yourself that you can actually do it. And that absolutely correlates into like just being confident in who you are when it comes to a dating situation.
Yeah.
You know,
That's
because
so good.
like how interesting would it be if you went on a first date and the person that you were talking to is like, I've never done anything because I've been too afraid.
Right.
Like, what are we going to talk about then?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So,
versus like you go on a first date and they're like, yeah, I just got back from backpacking in Europe by myself for 10 days.
right.
You know?
It's like, oh, this person doesn't need me.
Yeah.
And that is more attractive.
For sure.
That's way more attractive.
For sure.
But when I feel like, oh my gosh, there's been so many times where it's like, if I feel like the guy is getting clingy and it's like he like needs me, I immediately am turned off.
Yeah.
I'm like, But
Yeah.
I don't
Huge turn off.
I don't need Mason. Mason doesn't need me. We just complement each other.
Yeah. You just want each other.
Yeah.
That's so, I want to cry. What's your advice to like any single women watching this? We have audience is about 80% women, 20% men. So really, I guess just anybody. But I think you have a really incredible story, and like that's like inspiring. Like I think most people watching this who are single, like they want to be sitting where you're sitting one day, being able to say like that you went through this.
Yeah.
You found this person and all that. So what would be your advice to them, or like really to like your younger self too?
Oh my gosh. There's so much that I could say. But I think honestly, I would say that it's okay to not like being single. I when I was single, I couldn't stand it when I heard people say, you just need to get comfortable with being single before you find someone else.
Yeah.
You just need to, love being single first. And I think that's bullshit. I think that you can be very uncomfortable with being single and not want to be single, and that be perfectly fine. But in the same way, or at the same time, be comfortable with yourself enough to be alone in that season and not settle because you don't
want to be single.
Yeah. You can be single, you can hate being single, but also not settle at the same time.
Yeah.
There was one person that I kind of talked to between my last ex and Mason. And we talked for like a month. And I ultimately ended up cutting it off because there was like the main thing that I want in a man, he was not choosing that thing. And so I was like, okay, done. Like I adored everything else about this person. Like we had so much fun together.
Yeah.
But I was at the point where I had been through so much with my exes, and I have done the settling for less and watching it never work out over and over and over again.
Yeah.
To the point where I was 22 calling off a wedding at 6 days away.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Like I have stories for days.
Wow.
Like it took
22.
time.
That's crazy.
It took time to get to this point. But it was all because I was so uncomfortable with being alone, and I wanted a husband so bad that I was settling for less. And you know, I allowed myself to be single long enough to where I was like, okay, I can handle being alone. I like myself enough to be alone. And I will wait as long as I have to, but also it's okay to say that being single sucks, because it does, and it's lonely, and you don't have to enjoy being single. And don't let people's opinions of your singleness dictate, you know, the grace that you give yourself in that time.
It's so good.
So, but
no one ever says that.
I know.
No one says that.
I know, and it's annoying.
Yeah.
It's so annoying. I'm like, no, single sucks. Being single sucks, and it's okay. We don't have to love it before we get into a good relationship.
Yeah.
You know,
I think
like,
you can be content.
Yeah.
You can be content in any circumstances.
Sure.
I mean, that's a huge part of like getting right with yourself, getting right with God.
Sure.
But at the same time, you can say, I don't want to be single forever.
Yeah.
Like that's
right.
Yeah, there is that's enlightening for me, because I do feel like I have to say I'm happy even if I'm not. Right. If I'm single. Like especially I'm talking to like married friends.
Yeah.
Are you dating anybody or whatever? It's always like no, I'm not seeing anyone, but I'm fine. Like I'm happy. I'm doing like you have to like justify why you're single or like pretend that it doesn't bother you.
Yeah.
Or like there's like a fear of like being judged or looking desperate or something.
Which is stupid. I just can't. I don't like to put on a facade for people. So like my encouragement to single people is like, dude, just say how you feel.
Yeah.
Just say how you feel. And because I had no problem being like, yeah, I'm single and I hate it. Hate it. Let me know if you know anybody.
Yeah.
You know, like.
Love that.
It's silly. But at the same time, don't settle for people who you know are not good for you.
Yeah.
And listen to the people who are close to you.
Yeah.
Listen. Because if I can say anything about the wedding that I called off, it is that I am so thankful that I listened to my family. I am so thankful. Because if your closest people are telling you that the person that you are with is not right for you, they know. They know.
Yeah.
Listen.
Wow.
So that, yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Anything else that you want to say? I'm like, we could sit here forever, but it's
know,
almost
we
4
really
o'clock.
Could. No, eat your protein.
Yeah, eat your protein.
Eat your protein and go lift some weights, and then also eat carbs as well, because they're your friend.
Yes. Oh, and I will tag you in the description. I know you told me earlier you're not really taking in-person clients.
No, but I am taking online.
Okay. Yeah. So you can hit up Molly for online training and nutrition. Or if you want in person, I'm sure you can recommend someone as well.
For sure.
Yeah. Okay, yay.
Yay. Thanks so much.
Thank you. That's it. Rufus, did you have a nice nap?
Thank you all so much for tuning in to today's episode of That's What He Said. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and I hope you're taking away something valuable that will benefit your dating life. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please give this show a follow, rate, and review. And if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe, like this video, and most importantly, comment below, because I want to hear what you said. See you next time.